The Software Leaders Uncensored podcast, where tech leaders grow beyond the code.
You're listening to Software Leaders Uncensored, the raw, real talk podcast for tech execs who are tired of buzzwords and BS. I'm Steve Taplin, CEO, author, and currently writing my second book about what I've learned from building 30 ventures, facing 20 failures, and achieving 10 wins. I've taken companies all the way through going public, franchising worldwide. I've raised tens of millions of dollars. The common thread for me in every company I've done is that I always build custom software as the secret sauce behind success for my ventures. Now through my company Sonotify, I help tech leaders scale smarter with elite nearshore engineers who move fast and deliver. Each episode, I sit down with real tech leaders to talk about what's working, what's not, and what actually matters. So let's dive in. Today, we have the privilege of having Nick Hnatiw out of Chicago, who is a four-time CTO. I'm going to repeat that, four-time CTO, consultant, board member. He's been a CEO. He's currently CTO of a company called SideChannel. Nick, so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here, Steve.
Please walk our listeners through the journey of your career and what's led you to your current role.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I started at a security company doing, old school AV engine build, right? We built it was signatures and all that kind of fun stuff. So I was kind of deep in the internals right out of the beginning. When I left there and gone to the government actually, and started doing some squirrely stuff inside the government, working alongside the NSA, along with another group called US Cyber Command. They were trying to figure out kind of where they were going. And I really built like 10 years there, doing a lot of things. Yeah, really understanding how the government works or doesn't in some cases. So I'm pretty interesting, really great experience kind of going through all of that. As most government employees do, they get disillusioned and think they can do it better on the private side. So that's exactly the path that I followed. Started in basically doing MDR services before, kind of it was called MDR.
Okay.
And sold that company, and then started actually two companies at about the same time. One is realCISO, the other is SideChannel, as you had mentioned. So yeah, that brings me kind of today.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like you've had a fun journey. Certainly a guy that understands software and security and all the threats that come around that. Tell us about SideChannel.
Yeah, so SideChannel started as a vCISO practice, pretty much only from a friend of mine. We've known each other since we were kids, and as he was building that out and starting to get success with it, he realized that he was having a scaling problem. And so he called me up and he's like, "Hey, I need some help kind of running this thing. Help me figure out how to scale this thing and grow it." And so that led us down to basically down two journeys. We're creating both a risk management tool as well as we've now blown up the services firm to also be software as well. So Steve, to your point, building that customized software stack inside of that services firm is basically our focus now. So SideChannel, the service side predominantly revolves around the cybersecurity services. And so doing, from vCISO down to engineering work. Our product is a zero trust platform that helps enable a lot of the tooling and a lot of the work that those engineers are doing. So it does asset management, it does vulnerability discovery, it does microsegmentation, zero trust network access, as well as certificate management. Those are like the four core sort of pillars of that platform. The GRC tool is realCISO is managing risk and giving you an optic from a framework perspective. So if you want to look at yourself through NIST, cool, here you go. Now you can do that, get that picture of how you look. You look according to how NIST sees you, how HIPAA sees you, how PCI sees you. Name your framework flavor, kind of get a sense of where you stand there.
Gotcha. So your virtual CISO services, is that separate from the platforms you built, or do they all go together?
They're all separate in the sense of you can buy one and only have one, but they all also work together. Right. So The services firm is utilizing both the software capabilities to help deliver their service. We separately sell those software platforms to anybody else who wants them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So walk us through a typical client engagement. Who's your typical target market? What's your sweet spot for SideChannel?
Yeah. So really it starts from that, Series A, maybe pre-Series A startup all the way to a few $1 billion in revenue company. So really kind of walking that path of the small to mid-size market space.
All right.
and providing them the appropriate security management and tooling that they need given their place in the maturity spectrum.
So are you seeing companies getting cocky and waiting till they have something really bad happen before they engage you? What are you seeing?
We see everything, right? So we'll see the people who know they're terrible and need help. They have no idea what to do. So those are great clients, right? They're eager to fix what they're doing. They recognize they don't have the expertise in-house to do it. So they call someone like us to come in and help them figure that out. Then we have the people who think they're great, and they are definitely not great. Right. When they see that output from realCISO and they see their red number, they're very much like, oh, this doesn't look good, right? This isn't what we expected. So really, it's the journey is pretty varied based off of whoever it is that we're talking about and what their unique position is.
Gotcha.
From security perspective.
Your current projects you're working on, you mentioned Zero Trust platform, cybersecurity risk management solution. Well, what problem are you solving with these?
Yeah, so those are the underlying components of all those things that I had talked about, right? So really to think about the Zero Trust platform is really an access control problem, right? It's who has access to what things and how do you govern that? When you're thinking about one or two machines, that's a relatively simple thing to figure out. When you're talking about hundreds or thousands of machines, that's when it become really complicated. How do you determine who needs SSH access to a given resource or a number of resources, right? What team of admins needs access to that system? What user groups need access to this particular web app? How you manage all of that stuff with traditional networking technologies is pretty hard to do, right? And so the purpose and the protection that you're giving by utilizing something like ours is sort of the stopping the ransomware from happening, right?
Okay.
But the intrusion is going to be that this is the typical way that intrusions kind of happen at an organization, are that they come in to somebody, to low-hanging fruit, right? Somebody in HR, somebody in sales, somebody wherever.
That says click here.
Exactly. I've got some cat photos for you that you just need to see, right? The cat photos works every time. So sure enough, everyone, somebody's going to click on that at some point. It's probably not going to be the person who has the access that I want, being the hacker, right? I'm pulling from my government days now. I'm thinking about who do I want to target inside that organization.
Your government days, were they huge?
What do you, in terms of what?
Most tremendous government days?
Yes. Exactly.
I had to get some humor in here.
Yeah. No, totally. So so from that perspective, the attacker's perspective is always like, what is my end goal? My end goal is to make money. So how am I going to make money? I'm either going to steal your data, I'm going to lock up your data so you can't access it, or I'm going to use you as a pivot point to get to somebody else, right? So that I can then achieve my other two goals. So when I'm going into a network, I'm looking for anybody. I don't care. Because I know the way that networks are built and the way that accesses are granted, once I get in, I can then what's called laterally move to another position to gain those more accesses. And that is the way that hackers kind of move around. EDR came up, right? MDR, the CrowdStrikes, the SentinelOnes, all of the Sophoses, all those platforms kind of came up to protect that initial intrusion. What they didn't do, what they aren't, is 100% effective, right? You can still get around those things. Or there's still lapses in security that you can still kind of jump in and do and get access to those groups. So now what? Now that you're in and you're past the initial protection mechanism that you have for your clients or for your users, what do you do now? Well, now you want to stop that lateral movement. And that's exactly what Enclave is doing. So Enclave is basically saying, hey, Sally or Bob in sales or HR, you guys only have access to your HR and sales resources. You can't access anything else. So you can't see any of the production environment and any of the operational tech environment, like none of the things that exist on the network, you don't even know they exist. We're going to block you from seeing those things.
Gotcha.
Again, you could do this for as long as there's been networking equipment, you could do this. The problem is that the further back in time you go, the harder it's been to be able to accomplish that. You needed really advanced people that understood the networking equipment to be able to kind of manage and segment all those things. Now with software, which is what our solution is a software-based solution, you can do that very simply, right? You can say, cool, I know this user group only has access to these resources and nothing else. And I can lock them out of everything else. They can't even see it. So now when they get hacked, there's nowhere else for them to laterally move. That's the big piece there. Yeah.
So, certainly a lot of companies in the cybersecurity space. And how do you guys differentiate your products and your services from, the CrowdStrikes and the others out there?
Yeah, no, that's the $1 million question, right? That's how you determine if you're successful or not, right?
So come on.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's finding out what your uniqueness is, and I know it's kind of just answering your question with just the words from your question, but it's really the truth is there, right? It's determining what makes you unique in that particular environment to then pitch why you're better than somebody else, or why you're different, or doing something else in that case. So from our perspective, we see, if you think of, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover as sort of a journey, right? You're going to identify things, you're going to detect things, you're going to protect things, and then you're going to detect things. EDR lives after that detection phase, right? You've been hacked, they're going to detect the hack, or they're going to detect as the hack is happening. That's where a lot of tooling happens. And so we saw an opening in before you get hacked. How do you stop somebody from even hacking you in the first place? And so that's why we focused on the identify and sort of protect side of things. So before you get hacked, before the boom, left of boom is what some people like to say, right?
Gotcha.
So that's been like how we've specifically tried to do things. And then there's, the strategies of direct competitors in the space, of how we try to differentiate between them. That's, feature comparisons, all the sort of normal stuff that you think about.
Gotcha. All right, let's switch. Tell us about your engineering team and the tech stacks you guys are using and why.
Yeah, so the engineering teams for both platforms are about the same size. Our web apps are built on Meteor and Mongo, so that tech stack there. And then Enclave and the SideChannel product, Enclave has a software agent component as well. That's all in Go.
Gotcha. And your software team, are you guys a remote environment?
Yeah, so we're all U.S. based, local, and then remote in the U.S.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what, as a security conscious engineering culture, what have you seen key to build up products in your space?
Yeah. I mean, really the key factor, and I feel like this is true of whether I've been building companies or building tech teams or whatever, is really just the team. Who are the people that you want to work? What's the team that you want to build? And what are the people that are going to help fulfill that team composition to help you get to that place? That's really what I've seen to be like, for me, the biggest, I don't want to say challenge, but like the biggest sort of enhancement, right? I can get to my place faster if I have the right team set in place there, for sure.
What's the biggest challenge you're facing now?
Man, the fire today, which was put out quickly, customer issue. That's always always the one on your mind the most. From a platform perspective, it's really juggling the priorities, right? How do you fight people from scope creep, right? It's like, I feel like that's my number one job, is like, everyone's got good ideas. We are an agent, which makes it susceptible to even more good ideas. Oh, you're on the system already? What else can we do there? That's a question I hear often, and I cringe. I'm sitting here like, no, we're trying to keep our hands wrapped around what we're doing now. We don't need to add more and more and more. So I think those are probably the big things.
And it's definitely interesting. CTOs, it's been such a volatile space, and some even call it an impossible job. And when we look at the last couple of years, I think the average CTO lifespan at companies large and small has been around 18 months. They're trying to, weigh the demands of executives, board members, investors who can't even spell technology and don't understand software engineering, manage teams, keeps everything in click. It's definitely a tough job that requires a unique set of skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What's your key to bringing engineers on your team? What do you look for, for the products you're building, and, what are the key things you look for? Is it tech stack related? Is it security industry related? What's kind of been your key?
Yeah, I try to focus on the tech stack. The security side of stuff, I can usually train people on, right? I have enough of that to where I don't need everybody on the team to be experts in security. I need them to know how to develop, hopefully quickly, develop securely. Of course, that's a whole nother sort of aspect to it. But so I'm really trying to align the technologies that we're utilizing to make sure that we can start moving quickly as soon as they get on board. The other component specifically to us, since we are fully remote, is I need a level of independence in the folks who I hire. It's too hard to sort of micromanage or really lead people when you're not when you're not face to face. And so I get like this whole impetus of return to office, although like I don't agree with it. I really like that we're a remote company. It just requires a little bit of a different management style and a different personality on the employee side of things in order for it to work, I think, well.
I think in a perfect world, a hybrid arrangement is nice. I know I sit on 10 to 12 hours of Zoom calls a day. And sometimes I get confused when I see people three-dimensionally. I'm like, well, wait a minute, where am I? Tell us how AI and generative AI and the boom it's had over the past 12, 18 months, how it's affected your space and what your team's doing.
Yeah, I mean, from the startup space, it's the new thing you're supposed to attach to your company so that you can get better valuations, right? Like
that's right.
I feel like that's the number one one thing. We are AI enabled in some capacity. I mean, honestly, the biggest and the largest sort of impact I think it's had with us specifically is just code output, right? Like
Okay.
if you can utilize an LLM to be able to help you generate code, and you can really sync with it well and know how to use it properly, because it's definitely got limitations. But once you've kind of figured out that sweet spot of how to help make you faster, it definitely makes you lots faster.
And so do you have any tools built into your tech stack that your engineers are using? Last I checked, you don't want to throw code in public ChatGPT.
Recommend not doing that for sure. So yeah, I mean, what we're doing primarily is not throwing full repositories at these LLMs, certainly not the public ones like you had mentioned. We haven't built a full private one for us yet. I don't know if we will, we'll see. But really just kind of having it work through bugs quickly, right? If you have a function, there's bugs in there, you can throw it at it and it can typically find the bug relatively quickly. It's stuff like that. It's definitely not like full integration, not anything very professionalized or fully integrated into our ecosystem yet.
Gotcha. And, it's always a fine balance when you bring that in, how you do it. And then as soon as you do, a better tool will come out.
Yeah. I mean, on top of that, and one of the big things that I had immediately when all these things dropped out was like, well, what's the data privacy access here, right? And nobody could give you a good answer on that. And I don't even think there's great answers now. To your point exactly of like, well, what are you throwing at this thing and what is it collecting from you now? And how is it storing all of that? Like none of them are telling you that, because I don't think they totally know.
They have their 200-page T's and C's you can click on that. Yeah. If you actually read through it, it's not like they just post your data out there, but in 6 months, somebody could ask how to solve a problem that your data has, and it could spit out your data.
Absolutely.
And so definitely an evolution there.
Yeah.
So you've been a CTO 4 times over. What's one lesson you wish you had learned earlier in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to sort of what I said earlier about teams, right? Being really kind of the biggest, I think, variable for me on what's going to constitute success, right? And however you're looking at it. I think I didn't quite realize that early on in my journey and how important that would be. But really kind of building out that team properly is going to help you tremendously in year 3, year 4, year 5 and on.
Gotcha. All right. Tell us a good story about a security breach you'll never forget.
Oh, man. What is a good one? Let me think here.
And you could be vague on, obviously, we don't want to give any confidential information away, but frame up a good story for us.
Honestly, I haven't seen many great ones. I have seen some activity where, where our tool helps solve, which feels great, right? So someone hacks and then they can't access anything else and then they're detected. Like that's like the huge win for us. Like, so those are the ones that like make me feel good because like we're actually, really doing something that's helping in that regard. But like cool hacks, I actually have, it's funny, they don't happen all that like hey, this is an amazing hack. Like they don't happen all that often because it's really just like, hey, I got phished by an email and clicked on a link and now I've got access to everything, right? Or Target put in this HVAC sensor, and now the whole target, whole target infrastructure is now collapsing. Or the others, the most egregious stuff. Let me say it this way. So like the most egregious stuff I've seen are from like the manufacturing companies out there, right? I've too often have seen them just connect so what's called the OT environment, their operational technological environment, is like the manufacturing floor, and all of the, all the capabilities are all network connected down there, so that you can send data to those things and they can build things and however they want to be built, right? Well, if you need to connect the IT side to the OT side, well, how do you do that? And everyone's just like, well, you just plug it in, right? Like it's fine, without realizing that all that OT equipment is like super vulnerable to so much stuff. And so that's like the sort of worst stuff that I've seen out there in the world. But that's, what we're trying to help solve for. So that's good.
How do you believe AI will change the cybersecurity space?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that we will see a lot more automated sort of response actions from tools now. So what I mean by that is, what happens when a detection occurs? Right now, what happens is a ticket gets created. Somebody needs to go look at what that is, figure out what happened, and if there's any remediation needed, right? Do I need to reinstall that operating system? Do I just need to clean some stuff up, or whatever the case may be? I think you're going to start seeing AI kind of take a lot of that on, right? Being able to, once detection happens, like right now, the sensors all exist, right? That's essentially what security is now. Sensors with data aggregators, right? All these sensors exist out there, whether it's an EDR sensor, a network sensor, whatever, right? It's pulling that information into a central place. And this is where things have like really kind of blossomed over the last like 5 years, before LLMs and AI has come out. So we've got all this data sitting around, and now somebody needs to go look at all that data to figure out what actually is happening. That's hard, right? Well, as you know, right? As you get more data, it becomes harder and harder to kind of figure out. And so I think AI will help with a lot of that. And then the agentic sort of AI kind of pieces that are getting built out will be pretty interesting to see how those can interplay between tools. What I would love to see, and what I hate right now about security, is that a lot of things are stovepiped, right? So your EDR platform doesn't talk to your network platform unless you have like a SOC, a third system that hopefully connects to everything. So with I think like the agentic stuff, it could play that in between. It could play that sort of integration between those systems a little bit more cleanly than having to sort of use these, monolithic third-party systems and drive down the cost, really, right? That's the other huge piece to it, is those systems are only afforded by the large enterprises.
I read an interesting article today in the Wall Street Journal. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, he has another venture called World, where they have a tool to scan your retina, to store that data, to be able to limit people using AI to imitate you. And they're actually offering people Bitcoin in order to let their system scan your retina. And I'm kind of scratching my head on that, saying, I don't know that I would want them to scan my retina, and what the heck they can do with that data.
You should not give away your biological data to anybody.
From your DNA and everything else, right?
I mean, take 23andMe as an example, right? So this is a perfect example of why these things are risky. Yes. You may think, hey, I want to go learn about myself. Great. You're going to pay this company to analyze your DNA. They're then going to turn that into data, and they're going to store that data somewhere. And then a handful of things are going to happen from once you do that. Obviously, you'll have access to that information. You'll get insights into who you are. That's great. That's what you're paying for. They will either sell your data because it's beneficial to them, right? And that's exactly what 23andMe did, right? It sold data to researchers so that they could then utilize that information to do genetics research. That feels good, kind of, maybe, though I don't have a great understanding of that. Another option is they get bought. And now you have no idea what's going to happen to your data and what this new entity is going to do with that data. So that's a fairly large risk. And now you don't know what's going to happen to that. Then the other option, which happened to 23andMe, is that they go out of business. Yeah. And now there's this huge product, which is your data, that is going to probably get auctioned off to somebody. Exactly. So when people, especially when people are offering you money for your biological data, that's a huge red flag for me, right? Like that means, okay, like nobody's altruistic. Sam Altman is not altruistic, right? He is a venture capitalist through and through. So if he is giving you money for something, that means he's going to be making much more money off of what he is giving you or what you are giving him. So just think about that.
The assets of 23andMe as well.
Well,
Nick, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you getting uncensored with us today. Excited to see how you continue to shape your company's SideChannel and tech and security leadership at large. Any final shout outs or advice for tech leaders navigating change?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time. Thanks, Steve. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, in terms of change, I feel like, most tech leaders, most experienced tech leaders know, you don't just jump into something new because that's what everyone is doing. You've really got to do the diligence. The key to success in tech leadership specifically is you're marrying up your business alignment to your technology. It's not the other way around, right?
Yep.
The business is there to provide a function. The technology there is to serve that function. And so as long as you keep that and don't keep, running around trying to find the new tech enabled thing to go throw into your stack, I think you'll do all right.
Awesome. I love it. And thanks again, Nick. Appreciate it. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If this sparks something, share it, subscribe, pass it along. And just remember, the best leaders don't wait, they build. Thanks, everybody.